Welcome to a new installment of the 17.7 pod. I am Florin Duroiu, the tech principal of Metaflow, a software consultancy. And together with Simon Redfern, the founder of the Open Bank project, we are your hosts. We have both been interested in crypto as engineers and geeks, and lately trying to contribute to the space. With so much going on in the crypto at the moment, it's great to have someone who can untangle some of the complexity. And for that, I am happy to introduce Mateusz Czeladka, an engineer working since 2022 at the Cardano Foundation. His most recent contribution in the Cardano is the Cardano ballot, an accurate, transparent, verifiable, secure, and accessible way to vote for your DApp or stake-based events. Mateusz, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Hi, nice to meet everyone.
Great to have you, Mateusz. I'm gonna start with a very short question. There is a lot ground to cover these today. First question: what is the biggest feature of cryptocurrencies, Mateusz?
Yeah, I love the question. Yeah, so I would say that the biggest feature, at least historically speaking, has been some sort of self-sovereignty, some ability to basically host. Well, I don't know hosting, but it's a good word here. But to have and to possess basically cryptocurrencies without third-party control, right? So without any custodian that has access to it. So that's one thing. Another thing is, as per Bitcoin core, so to speak, is holding more deflationary assets, right? Or at least not that inflationary, because Bitcoin, at the end of the day, and other cryptocurrencies, they are inflationary assets, although not all of them, but majority of them. But they are not that inflationary as the traditional currencies. So it's kind of like a battle at the end of the day to try to protect against the inflation, right? So we have a Keynesian school and we have an Austrian school, right? So the whole
what school? What school and a what school?
I am. So in the economy, there are two schools of thoughts, right? There is a Keynesian school of thoughts that.
Oh, Keynesian.
Yeah, excuse me, my pronunciation is bad. Keynesian school of thought that.
Yeah.
And we have an Austrian school, right?
Okay.
So if you look around the world, the majority of the countries there are on the Keynesian school of thought. Yeah? And
how do you summarize that, Mateusz?
Yeah, so in this Keynesian school of thought, you have inflationary currency. By default, well, of course, it will vary from country to country, but the Western countries kind of like agreed more or less that it should be around 2 to 2.5%. That's called a healthy inflation, if you will. And of course, you have debt. So debt is fueling the growth of the economies. So the companies have to take that. Of course, individuals have to take that if they want to possess some properties and so on and so forth, like mortgages. And the idea is that because of the inflation, right, the debt will also, over time, will be reducing. So if you take a 30-year mortgage today, of course, in 30 years, it will not be exactly the same amount because it will already lose a lot of its value. So that's a debt-based economy. And the Austrian school of thought basically says that you have deflationary assets, or even, well, at least not inflationary assets, right? So you have opposite of that. And there's been a very good book actually that I read. I forgot what was the title of this book, unfortunately, but it was about the fact that we're actually living in deflationary times, but we have inflationary economic system. Yeah. When the title comes to me, I will mention.
But I mean, everything I see around is getting more expensive, no? Isn't it? Like property gets more expensive, coffee gets more expensive. The important things in life, you know.
Yeah.
The nightclubs get more expensive.
Well, that's actually not entirely true, right? If you look at various products, there are products that are getting less expensive. That are going more expensive.
Okay. Like what? What's getting less expensive?
Electronic products is a good example. Electronic
computers.
Products,
computers, right?
Yeah, computers and electronic products. And I don't remember
electric cars.
Sorry.
Electric cars are getting.
Yeah, there you go. It's a good example as well. I mean, there's a lot of competition now in the electric cars area, and that's definitely very, very competitive, and that will also cause price drops. So I think many Bitcoiners or many people joining cryptocurrency in the early days, they've been kind of like thinking about this Austrian line of thought or Austrian economics. But cryptocurrencies do not have to be only about this kind of economic stuff.
But hold on, Mateusz, I'm trying to understand. Why were the Bitcoiners thinking about Austrian economics? I mean, they were hanging out in Viennese coffee shops, or why is that important to them? I mean,
well, actually, you have a point. Maybe initially they were not thinking; they were just geeks that wanted to play with the technology. But later on, I would say 2012, 13, such things already started to emerge. Well, but so I'm talking about the later years, probably not at the beginning, 2008, 9. Nobody was thinking about any money or anything like that, right? In fact, the founder of the Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, often in the videos comes back to these times and he says, "Guys, we never thought about any money making or anything because it wasn't about that to start with." Later on, of course, this all changed, but at least I'm talking about this initial times. Now, in 2012, 13, and of course later, I think they started to think about this because of the financial crisis, of course, that happened in 2008, and the fact that we have continuously disinflation, right? So it's a way to protect the wealth rather than. Of course, you can do that by buying property and buying other assets, but it just started to be another asset class. Very volatile, very unaccepted by many, kind of like trying to compete with gold in a way. And here we are now. But blockchain is not only about financial systems, right? There are also use cases which are not related to the financial use cases at all, like for instance the ballot that I did, or we did in general. But what seems to be happening, and I'm not sure if this is a good message necessarily to share, but what seems to be happening is that majority of the people, it's just reality, majority of the people are more interested in those financial applications. Although there are other applications, but they are not that interested in or not as much interested as they are in financial applications. That's at least my current experience. Over the years.
Well said. So it's always about one thing I've heard, which strikes a good point about cryptocurrencies is. The biggest feature, some people say, is number go up of cryptocurrencies. That's which is a pretty depressing outcome if this is what's supposed to be.
It is.
To me, the biggest feature of any cryptocurrency, and of course, starting with the OGs like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and later on Cardano and the others, is the removal of an intermediary between two peers. That to me is the biggest feature, like moving value between two parties without the involvement of another party, which is very, very clearly a centralized party. That to me is the biggest feature. But as much as anyone tries to explain this, the number go up is still, for the current wave of people joining into the crypto fray, it's probably the biggest feature. it
Can
will
I-
evolve.
Yeah.
Can I mention what I think is the biggest anti-feature as well? And that is that you've got to keep these assets secure, right? So if the bank's not keeping them secure, then you have to keep them secure, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's just the biggest anti-feature, maybe.
Definitely, and it's definitely also not an easy one to overcome. There's been some wallets that attempted social recovery and these kind of things in the scenario where you would lose your key. But across the board, I still do not see this as a solved problem, even though there are some wallets that have been attempting to have this social recovery and things like that.
Mateusz, could you explain that to our listeners that might not have ever had Bitcoin or Cardano or Ethereum?
So,
explain it to my mum.
yeah. So in the sort of like a traditional cryptocurrencies, right, without social recovery or hardware wallets, you simply have 24 keywords or between 12, 15, 24, something like that, depending on the standard. You have pre-generated keywords that you're supposed to generate them on your computer. And then you're supposed to store them somewhere, these keywords. And then you need to make sure that these keywords are secure. So in a scenario where somebody would break into your house and you would actually see those keywords somewhere because you would leave them on a piece of paper, and this person would understand that these are cryptocurrency keywords, then you could lose actually your possessions, which is not nice.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you are keeping them secure, right? So, and it's not an easy task because if you leave them on a piece of paper, then there can be a fire in your house. And
you spill some coffee. You spill some coffee.
Or you spill some coffee.
Your children has friends around, and they make paper airplanes and throw them out the window.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
If you have kids, the kids can damage it. Your dog can damage it if you do not store it properly. So then the second iteration sort of came that people were trying to make it more secure. So one of the ideas, the very simple one to start with, was some sort of a physical wallet. And what I mean by that, sorry, maybe not physical, but like metal wallet.
Yeah.
So that you would have these keywords would be very difficult to destroy. So that already protects you against fire, that protects you against other things. So these keywords that are durable, very durable. You still have a problem that a thief can steal it. You still have a problem that on your computer a hacker could see those, but at least they are durable against some things. Then came idea of the hardware wallets. So the notion being that we never want that these keywords that we are writing down, that they are ever entered into the computer. Because the moment they are entered into the computer, even if you're gonna use Linux, and which is actually one of the better ones, better systems for these kind of things, comparing to Windows or Mac OS. But even if you're gonna use that, there is still a possibility that you have some sort of Trojan horse, or that you have some sort of your computer is compromised, such that people are able to see those keywords that you are entering, either via keylog or even literally screen recording you as a Trojan horse, right? So there has been some scenarios or some at least cases where I heard that people have lost cryptocurrencies because they have not protected themselves well enough against hackers. So then if you purchase a hardware wallet, which costs like $50 or something these days, they are also, of course, more expensive with more features, but the basic one costs $50. The keywords, we still have keywords, but we never entering them into the computer. We are entering them onto the physical device with a microprocessor. So the idea is that that device cannot be hacked in the same way. Probably, maybe it could somehow, but it cannot be hacked because it's not such a generic device like the traditional computers with the Trojan. But then, so this protects you against some scenarios now, new ones, right? Because that means I'm protected against hackers. And people say that if you have more than 2 weeks of salary, this is just kind of like an estimate, but more than 2 weeks of your salary, you should already use hardware wallet for it. So limitation, basically. So it protects you against these kind of hacks and some other things, but it still doesn't protect you against everything, right? It doesn't protect you against a scenario, for instance, at least the first version of the hardware wallet, because then it was improved. Doesn't protect you for a scenario where somebody breaks into your house and tries to held you hostage, right? Says, okay, either you give me that, or I'm gonna shoot you and everybody. Sounds crazy what I'm saying, but actually in some countries it's not that crazy.
Right.
In the Western world, maybe it is crazy, but maybe not so much in Colombia or some other countries.
So it's like a bank robbery, but instead,
it's like
home bank robbery.
Like you had a lot of cash, right?
Yeah.
And then people came up with an idea, with a honeypot idea. It's a pretty cool idea.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of having 24 words, you have 25 words.
Ah.
But on your 24 words, you also have a little bit of your cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Then if somebody holds you hostage, right, you go, okay, fine, please don't kill us. Here is the cryptocurrency wallet. Here is the mnemonic for it. So you give those 24 keywords.
Yeah.
And here there is a 0.001 Cardano, one bit.
Or even 50 Cardano, that would be okay. Right? Give them 50 Cardano, let them.
Yeah, Ethereum, whatever. Doesn't matter. We are agnostic at the moment to which crypto.
Yeah.
It's just there is some very little one, right?
Yeah.
And but this 25th keyword that you only have in your head, yeah, and maybe you can share it with your spouse and family, because this one will not unlock it for you. You still need to have the other part, right?
Yeah.
So then you can have a backup of what you have given to these people in some other location, for instance, at your family place. Right? So even if they steal it from you, you still go to your family, and then you have these 24 keywords. But one of them you only keep to your head, and that's a good protection. Although of course you could always argue, but hey, if you are a very clever thief, you could also know about
that,
right? Well, that's true. But I would say that at the moment, thieves and people that are breaking in, I think cryptocurrencies are not yet that popular that people these people would know about this. But of course, over time, this will change. It will probably become more like a commodity, more popular commodities. And then, if either you're prepared or you're not prepared for such things. But I would say that this is definitely a big disadvantage of cryptocurrencies, is self-custody. And to some extent, I would say that, how to say that? Just from so if it wasn't, actually, what I'm going to say is probably going to freak out a lot of people that are into cryptocurrencies. But from the point of view of ease of use and stuff like that, if the traditional systems in various countries, financial systems, we trusted them, right? And actually, it's a much easier system. You have somebody else taking care of this for you. You don't have to have self-custody, you don't have a stress, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So to some extent, this is not a good thing, right? But anyway. Now the last one is the social recovery, basically, right? That now imagine the scenario where you actually, no matter what you try to do with your security, but you actually lost these 24 keywords somehow. They were durable, they were whatever, but you actually lost them. Okay. So the idea of social recovery is that you could designate in your it's like a multi-sig wallet, we call it multi-sig or something, where you could designate multiple parties which would be able to unlock the wallet. And one of the first ideas that came, because you can complicate it in multiple scenarios, but the first idea that came was kind of like a 2 out of 3 wallet, right? Multi-sig. So you need to have 2 keys out of 3 keys in order to unlock the wallet. Yeah. So if you think about that, you could have like one of them is stored at your parents' place, one of them with notar. I don't know how to say notar. Notary.
Notary, yeah.
Notary.
Notary, yeah.
A lawyer or a lawyer, right? And one at your own home. That's a simple scenario, right? So if I'm gonna lose it, I can go to my family. Okay, at least there is one key there, and I can go to the notar. And in the notar, I present my documents. Hey, this is me. Can you please give me this key so I can unlock the funds because I lost my own key. And notar says, oh, okay, yes, this is you. Yeah, so checks you basically, and then gives you the key. And that's not. Well, I mean, can we call it a social recovery? I mean, this is some sort of one idea of a social recovery with an institution in between. But this lawyer themselves, they are unable to unlock these funds as well because you need 2 out of 3 basically. Yeah. And yeah, there's also 3 out of 5. So there are a lot of multi-sig possibilities effectively. Yeah. But the most streamlined version of the social recovery and the kind of like a dream comes true, but would be kind of almost like the Facebook-like app, right? That you have some sort of friends that you designate as the ones that are able to unlock your funds. But for instance, you need, well, maybe family, maybe not friends, sorry, maybe like family members. And then if you're gonna lose it, then yeah, they are able to press a button somewhere in some application, and then you are able to access it, right? So it doesn't really necessarily need a lawyer or notar.
It's like, it would be like leaving like spare keys with a friend, but all your friends need to give you all the spare keys before you can get in, type thing. Or two out of 3 of them.
Maybe not all of them, but some of them, and it will be automated with the wallet, right? You don't have to physically actually travel to them in order to do that. They are able to unlock within the wallet itself. So this is what we call in cryptocurrencies wallet a social recovery. Fortunately, very few wallets still implement that. And I think it's actually very important for the adoption of cryptocurrencies. I'm actually quite unhappy, generally speaking, how bad we are in cryptocurrencies when it comes to this social recovery aspects.
Right.
Yeah, but I think this is a given, because once you start moving the value that you accumulate during your life outside of banks, you become the sole responsible party of maintaining that value.
Yeah.
And you've offloaded before, and now you become a self-custodian, and that comes with this kind of responsibilities and things you need to keep in check to be able to get access back to your wealth. This is something that will not be solved. I think it will, the UX that will emerge out of this multiple ways that you just described. I think there will be a good compromise at the end of the day. There is other options as well. I don't think we need to go through all of this. There is also inheritance that becomes very important. What happens if a person passes away and they have the currencies in a wallet? There is many things, and I think smart contracts will come very, very central into play here as well.
Yeah.
But indeed, Simon, this is an anti feature of the current state of the cryptocurrencies for self-custody. Yes.
I just want to say something about these 24 words that Mateusz was mentioning. I looked into that a bit, and it's really interesting, right? So the words are not any old words. So they are, I think they're all 5-letter words. Is that right? I can't remember. I think they're all 5-letter words. Or if you start,
you can have any.
Sure. But you only, in the standard BIP 39, you only need the first 4 letters in order to track the whole word. And so there's a word list, right? There's a there's a constrained word list, and I think 1,000 to be more specific.
Okay. And I think the maths of it said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the maths of it say, even if someone learns one of the words, it doesn't make it easier to learn the rest of them, or something like that. Could that be?
No, they are completely correct. They are uncorrelated. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But this topic on inheritance, actually, I wanted to touch a little bit on that.
Uh-huh.
I remember introducing my one of the family members into cryptocurrencies. That was back in 2017, so many years ago. And at that time, he had a wedding with his wife. At that time, I was like thinking, okay, what kind of gift can I give him?
Okay.
So I actually gifted him at that time. I was into Ethereum. Now I'm less into Ethereum, not because I'm working for Cardano. I could be working for Ethereum, right? Because I just a little bit lost plot there to some extent. But anyway, and I gifted him one Ethereum at that time. And it was $300 at that time, right? So of course, in terms of the price appreciation, number of the rep, right, it was great. But I remember having conversation with him about the self-custody topic and inheritance topic and so on and so on. And he basically said, this is insane. This is a young guy, actually. You know, it's not like, oh, because people like 60, 70 or whatever we consider to be kind of more mature age. I don't want to kind of like decide on the spot for this value, for the age. But what I wanted to say is that young people, they are more open to crypto generally, right? So he was 30 at that time, I believe. I was relatively young. And it's like, I don't know, but what happens if I'm gonna, you know, die and so on and so forth. And it's 2024, right? And we still do not have 100% answer. Well, not 100%, we still do not have even answer to that. I was thinking about some ideas how one could implement a solution for that, and I don't even think this. I mean, sorry. In a decentralized way, of course, it's very difficult to do that because you would need to have DIDs and verified DIDs, so it's not even enough to have DIDs. DID stands for digital identifier, known as DID. It's a standard from W3C, but the problem is that you also need verified DIDs. You need an entity that's able to say that this DID really belongs to you, a physical person who needs to check on you, like who, you know, the person who you are. So for that, we have typically KYC processes and so on and so forth. So that's not even so that's one way, but there is also a way that you could have some sort of institution, intermediary institution. Yeah, I know we wanted to escape institutions, right? But so I'm now bringing the institution, but I'm trying to say that with an intermediary institution is actually not that difficult to solve, because we would have a smart contract, and in the smart contract, that institution would have an ability, either with a multi-sig or with directly, to kind of like enable or disable things, right? So or with an oracle we could do that or something. But what I'm trying to say is that the institution would know which people have died, and because you can monitor some country level register, for instance, for the deaths of people, and just filter the information. Basically, you're not interested, and only you take the clients which you are working with, right? So, and you store them in some database or whatever. And then you would be able to interact with the contract. So that's one way, custodial way, but there are also other ideas that people came up with. I really like some of these ideas, and I have to confess I have way too many ideas, too little time. One of the ideas that somebody was exploring was a dead man's chest contract. Actually exists already. Even on Cardano, we have such a contract to play with. The idea is that you have funds in the contract which you have access to, obviously, but if you are not interacting with that contract from time to time, whatever the time period you're gonna set, like once per year, once per month, then basically it will unlock it also for some other beneficiary.
Interesting.
Love it. This is great.
You have to ping the contract. It's like pinging. And the way you can do that is that you can do it manually, that you have to connect the wallet on the website and you have to ping it. But you could also have some sort of bot that would be pinging it for you, but that's more for the techie users, right? It's just so that they don't have to manually keep pinging it. And at the same time, this bot would be connected somehow to know, of course, that you are either alive or not alive, because otherwise.
Yeah, this is actually a good. That's a good analogy with the dead man button, which, as far as I know, it's been invented to ensure that the people who drive trains are actually alive at the wheel back in the day.
Right.
There was a button where the driver of that train was supposed to press periodically to let the people in the central dispatch know that they're still alive.
Yeah.
This is actually a good. It's a
Dead
very
man
very
switch
good
or something,
application
right?
of that.
Yeah. But where does the money go though? So say
It
I
doesn't go, right? Because in smart contracts, at least on Cardano, they are passive. So that means that you are able to unlock it. That means that somebody else can claim it. Yeah.
But if I want to send it to my son or my daughter.
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly.
That can be done.
So it has to have
different
even if you forget about it. Let's say that, oh shit, I forgot to press the button, right? The only thing that you would enable is the fact that they can claim it. So you would have to have a, well, I don't know if this is the right word, but of course there are families in which you will not want to have that because you might not 100% trust your children. I know it sounds crazy, but in a typical healthy families, this is of course never a problem. My child is equal to the trust level that I have myself. I just of course some pathological scenarios. So for majority of the cases this will work, but even for those cases that it will not work, then during the time before you press the button, then your family will have access to your wealth in addition to you, because your keys never disappear as well, right? So you still can unlock with your keys, just also beneficiaries now can unlock as well.
Okay, so it's not moved, the funds are not moved to another address, there's just another set of keys which can...
Correct, yeah, correct. Because the smart contracts, they are not active, they are passive. So you need to have somebody that calls the contract, actually, right?
All right. So that brings me to the next question, which is very closely related to what we've talked about, especially on the Cardano side. I wanted to ask you, Mateusz, what makes Cardano unique?
Oh my God. How many hours do we have?
Well, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's keep this to the best features, let's say.
I will try to stick as much high level as possible. It has a lot of branches, but anyway. So on a very high level, Cardano is trying to be something in between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay. On a very high level, it tries to be what Bitcoin could be potentially. The word being potentially is very important here. Should it continue its potential evolution? Also, funny term, right? So accounting model is UTXO in Bitcoin. Cardano, we have extended UTXO. It's a very similar accounting model. There's some difference, but it's a very similar model.
Can we explain that, please? Can we explain that, Mateusz? UTXO.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
To my mother.
Yeah. So what is a UTXO? The best way to explain a UTXO accounting model is by looking into your wallet. Because in your wallet, you will have typically coins and notes. Yeah? And when you go to pay somebody, you typically take a few coins and you assemble them together and you purchase something, right? You could also of course give just one coin, but you can also give multiple coins.
Yeah.
So this is what we call like the input UTXOs effectively, and these are the inputs to the transaction that you want.
To the next payment. Yeah.
And they together, these coins adapt to a value, exact value, or even more to the value, right? And then there is other side. There is a cashier as well, and the cashier will take all those coins, and will give you a change, So of course we'll take the amount which they want to take, but we'll go give you a change back. It's exactly how UTXO works.
Yeah.
So we have then output UTXOs, which can be one or many as well, because what if the cashier does not have exactly the same amount? Gonna give you multiple coins as well. In the contrary to the account-based systems, such as Ethereum, where you just have only one amount pretty much. So
I got a question, Mateusz, just to dive into this UTXO a little bit. What happens if the cashier doesn't have the right change? Do they give you, how does that work? Or am I?
No. So this is in physical world, this can happen, but in the virtual world, it cannot happen.
Right.
Because the cashier can always split their coins into multiple ones.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, you cannot do that in the physical world. You cannot split it. But here you can kind of like fragment or different, just like we have in the hard drives, right? We used to have a process called fragmentation and defragmentation.
Yeah.
So with UTXOs, it's the same. The UTXOs can be more fragmented or less fragmented.
Okay.
In fact, having more fragmented UTXOs is actually a benefit for Cardano, because it means, I don't know if I should go into this loophole right now. Probably I shouldn't. But so that's a UTXO. I hope that answers your the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the very high level, it's almost like if you took Bitcoin and you try to evolve it further. You replace the consensus mechanism, you added smart contracts to it, you added governance features, so on and so forth, more scalability and things like that.
Great. So on the consensus mechanism, what do you actually mean by that? Because that interests me quite a bit.
So I'm more than happy to answer that question. But before I do answer that question, I'm gonna say that different consensus mechanisms, they can appear to be the same, but actually they can be not fundamentally, but quite a lot of those details of those consensus system will matter so much that you could almost say, oh my God, this is fundamentally even different sometimes.
Right.
So a good example is proof of work, because proof of work, this is a relatively well understood, right? Bitcoin is a proof of work, so we need to perform some work, some computation, and there are these miners that are performing computation. They are guessing effectively, and eventually somebody guesses and then takes the reward, right? Okay.
Right.
So critics will say of that consensus system, because there are always like pros and cons for every consensus system. They say, okay, but it's consuming a lot of energy. Okay, true, that's true. But it's not a problem because this energy is not used, right? Okay, fair enough, but still this consumes this energy. But now there is proof of useful work, right? So it's just a small detail, but actually this detail changes everything. So before I answer on the Cardano, so what is proof of useful work? Unfortunately, Bitcoin doesn't have it. There are some cryptocurrencies that do have it, but the proof of useful work is something like, some of you might remember Boeing or SETI at home. Do you guys remember?
Oh, yeah.
Very well.
So Boeing, B-O-I-N-C, was a framework from MIT, if I remember correctly, that you could basically run like folding at home, SETI at home, and so on and so forth. Now imagine that mining of the cryptocurrencies is equal to also solving the puzzles for protein folding. It's the same.
Interesting.
So now mining cryptocurrencies becomes a byproduct of the fact that I'm protein folding.
Nice.
How cool is that?
Nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that is proof of useful work. In Cardano, there is we don't have a proof of useful work, but we have a paper which has been written by Input-Output on the proof of useful work. I forgot what was the name of the paper. I think it was, because we have all these Greek methodology characters. But there is definitely a paper. I can point you guys to it, and we can link it to the show notes on the proof of useful work. Okay. Why am I mentioning that? And I didn't even jump to the Cardano yet. I jumped it because people immediately say, "Oh, but you are POS. you are stupid, basically, or whatever you don't like about POS, because there are haters and lovers for each of these consensus mechanisms. But be careful, because the devil is in details of the individual POS system. So quite often, when people think about Cardano, they think about this on the same level as Ethereum POS system, right? Because Cardano is a proof of stake system, but it's, well, I don't know if fundamentally, but it's significantly different than the Ethereum proof of stake system.
Okay.
So what we have in Cardano is something which is, it's a delegated proof of stake with an ability to be a self miner. So a classical delegated proof of stake system allows only a delegator to be able to host a miner, and others have to delegate to that person effectively, something like that. But we have a modification of the DPoS system where the users can also be miners, because we don't have any limitation to the amount of funds that you need in order to stake, to create a staking pool, right? So you could have only one ADA, and you would be able to create a staking pool. Obviously, you would not be able to mint a block so easily with one ADA. So you need at least some people delegating to you, or you need to have your own funds, but it's not a DPoS system. It's not a delegated proof of stake system. An example of a delegated proof of stake system was, for instance, EOS. Some of you might still remember it. It's not very popular these days, but it was this very classical delegated stake proof of system. There's also this stake proof system delegated stake proof system in Cardano with this ability to self-host. It's very unique in a sense that sometimes I even think that it's a proof of merit at times.
What does that mean, self-host? I did not get that.
Yeah, so self-hosted means anybody can create a stake pool, right, basically.
All right.
And you don't have to accept delegators. You can basically
you do your own one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can be like a self-miner, like.
But that's like running Bitcoin D, right? Isn't that the same as running Bitcoin D type thing? No.
Well, I'm not that into Bitcoin, I have to say, but of course, if you are a miner in Bitcoin, anybody can be a miner.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. The difference is that, as I said, you don't have to accept delegators to you.
Okay.
So you can just be a private pool you can have only for yourself, basically. Yeah. Because okay. But anyway, so the protocol or the research paper which formalizes this protocol is called Ouroboros in Cardano, and we've went already in Cardano for multiple iterations of the Ouroboros protocol. At the beginning, there was an Ouroboros Classic, then Ouroboros BFT for as a playground, because we don't have a BFT-alike protocol. Actually, we have a Nakamoto consensus. Then there was Ouroboros Praos, and now, which is currently on the mainnet, and now we are working on the further versions of Ouroboros. And there's there are a lot of papers already, but some of them have not been implemented yet. For instance, Ouroboros Genesis, Ouroboros Leos, and so on and so forth. We will not have time to go into this. It's just important to know that these protocols also go through some sort of evolution process, not just one POS protocol and that's it. But I mentioned the term and probably confused the hell out of you and even the listeners, even more probably, because I mentioned something called proof of merit.
Yeah.
We in Cardano, we have by book. If you look into all of those research papers, it never uses the term proof of merit. So fundamentally, from the research point of view, we have a protocol which is compatible with proof of stake, right? And that's just a scientific fact. Yeah. The reason I said that we have sort of something like a proof of merit, which by the way has equal amount of lovers and haters. So there are people that love this and haters. But first, let me explain it. We are not a classical POS-based system. In a classical POS-based system, I would say like Avalanche blockchain is a classical POS-based system, right? You have some sort of miners, right? The stakers. You are able to delegate to them, but you don't know who they are. they are completely randomized in the network, right?
Okay.
And if any of you have played with Avalanche blockchain, if you look at the list of validators, actually majority of the blockchains, Solana is the same. Just have a list of validators.
Right.
Typically, you don't know to whom you are delegating, and this is considered to be a feature. And as I said, it's an advantage and disadvantage at the same time. Why is it an advantage? Well, it's an advantage because you don't have some sort of assumptions who that person is. It's just a randomized list. And so you just pick whoever, right? Maybe the one that's making the most blocks, because that's pretty much the only criteria which you can use. How healthy is that miner mining, right? And but in Cardano, this is not the case. In Cardano, the stake pool operators, well, we also have a list of people, but they have to fight for the fact that you're gonna delegate to them. So typically they will try to market their stake pool somehow. Please delegate to me, don't delegate to somebody else. So they have sometimes they have YouTube channels, personas. No, not always, because you don't have to do that. You can self-anonymous, but you're doing this.
And a website and so on.
And this is exactly how I started with the Cardano. I was not working in the Cardano Foundation at the beginning. I was, okay, how can I now entice people to delegate to me? So we created Cardano Blockchain Insights product. We created dApps on Cardano product, so that we're tweeting from time to time about things to try to say, hey, can you please delegate to me, not to this other guy? The critics, of course, do not like that, because the critics will say that this is kind of like a marketing scam or something, right? They will say, but you know, they are advertising themselves, whereas in the traditional POS systems, like everybody's equal. Well, more or less, because in the traditional POS system, you are pledging or you are saying how much you are securing with yourself, which is of course also what we have in Cardano. And then maybe you try to get those delegators that. So you have a higher chances to get the delegators the more you are pledging, basically, or the more you are securing the network, right? So
because they're adding to your value, right?
Yeah,
they're adding to your staking pool.
This is a classical POS system. Is the pools that have a lot of pledge will be the ones that will be the winners, effectively. But that's not the case in Cardano. In Cardano, we see examples, and that's what Charles actually wanted when he started. This is all on purpose. He wanted to try as much as he can within the formal framework of the POS protocol, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not so easy to develop a good POS protocol that would have the same level of guarantees that the proof of work has. And even in Cardano, we are still not 100% there. We are almost there. When we have Ouroboros Genesis, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm not a researcher into consensus system, we will have the same level of guarantees exactly how the Bitcoin protocol is. But we are at the moment on mainnet not exactly there. Yeah, but anyway, what I wanted to say, I lost the plot now. Geez.
Proof of merit.
Proof of merit, yes. So he tried to start it in such a way that you are like an American dream, basically, right? So you have a very little pledge yourself. You don't have a lot of money yourself, right? Let's say, but you create a stake pool. Initially, you can use even cloud infrastructure or even at home if you have the possibility to do that. And then your costs are relatively low, right? And your capital is also quite low. But what you are then doing is you are generating this merit, what I call proof of merit, right? So you basically go to the YouTube, you create a software, you create a dApp. So you are generating the value, it's not the direct financial value, but then you are sharing this in some communication channels, whatever those channels are, so that you are saying, guys, please delegate to me your stake, because that way I'm helping to grow Cardano. Whatever this growing is at the moment, right? Is this merit part. It can
you're kind of generating some kind of reputation.
Yes.
I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when I was delegating my Cardano, you know, I would go to the app and then I would look at all the funny different names, right? And there was I don't know, and you just you click on a few of them and you look and you see, okay, yeah, these guys are, oh yeah, one of them was called Carry On Curry or something like that. And I like that because it had some kind of functional reference or something like that. And then, I kind of split it between a couple of different ones. You just check out their website, where are they? Does it, is the website up? Because does it seem secure? Blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, you check the performance, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a YouTube channel, they have a Twitter handle. You can see what they are saying. Maybe they are, supporters of Biden, Trump. I know this sounds crazy what I'm saying, but I know there are people that will delegate to somebody because it's a Biden supporter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's just which trades.
Which tribe you want to join, right?
Yeah, for you it was Curry because it has functional programming. Another person will say, "What kind of guy is that?" Right? It's very subjective.
It's all about
being
a fan of.
Is that this merit aspect. The thing is that the merit is completely different for different people, and this is also one of the observations that we noticed on Cardano, that a lot of people did not want to delegate. Unfortunately, I think this is a big problem. Did not want to delegate to developer pools, because developer pools, they were not very good at marketing. They didn't have YouTube channels and so on and so forth, but actually created pretty good solutions on Cardano, right? In terms of technology. And what happened was for the YouTubers, the ones that were every day giving the news, and there still are some amazing Cardano YouTubers providing everyday news updates. I listen to some of them as well, so it doesn't have to be, I don't have to delegate to them. It's just a common.
They might not be very good at DevOps or something like that, right?
Yeah, or some of them are very good at DevOps. Very good point. They also didn't get a lot of delegation. So what we observed in Cardano was the things which are happening in the real world, like media, these big guys, they always at the top, but we developers, we're always somewhere in the cellar and so on and so forth. So it does not always have to be a good thing. And of course, Charles, when he started that project, he didn't know at that time that, and don't get me wrong, there are some people that will also delegate to the developers. We just didn't see that kind of huge thing. Foundation, for instance, has this, with Foundation, you can register that you would like to receive some delegation because we're doing a community delegation as well. And some portion of the funds we are delegating to the community pools. And if you register your interest there, then there is some sort of lottery process. I don't exactly know the details, but I do know who's working on it. I can always ask. And they're also looking into these kind of things, like, oh, okay, this guy is writing a lot of smart contracts as a public. So, okay, we're not delegating to that.
I'd just like to say that when I looked into it, it felt perfectly natural to do that, right?
Yeah.
It felt in fact, I kind of thought all proof of stake delegation pools worked like that. No. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? So I think that's a good thing.
But I wanted to say that this also has another face to it. I know a person from Cardano that actually does not like this model at all. Because he's a business owner. He's a lot of Cardano himself, but he completely has no time, zero time. He's all the time working on his private companies. He has few companies. And he told me, look, I cannot create a YouTube channel and things like that. I would like that people delegate to me because I have because I'm so much securing the network with the amount of ADA that I have. So I would like recognition because of the fact that I have so much skin in the game. That's what he says. That's right.
Okay.
And they say, oh, but these YouTubers, they don't have anything. They are securing some, depends on a YouTuber, right? But there can be a person that does not have a lot of money, will still have a lot of delegation, actually. So they themselves do not possess a lot of ADA. So not everybody likes this model.
Interesting.
And for that we have a parameter in the Ouroboros protocol called A naught, which basically says how much the value which the pool is pledging plays in the final.
Interesting.
income, or not income, but in the rewards that you are obtaining. If the value is low, it will have no significance. You have 1 million ADA or 10,000 pledged, or less even, to be honest, right? But if the value is high, then we'll change the role. That's why we have a parameter committee now, which is able, a lot of these parameters, we can tweak them and tune them. Yeah. And there's so many, of course, voices now where we should go, right? Some people are saying, oh, we should have more pools, or this parameter should be that. This,
but this is fantastic, right? This is this is really cool, right? This community guidance of financial or blockchain infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I guess this is one of the things that makes Cardano unique. Back to the question I asked Mateusz. It's this dynamic aspect of being able to evolve, especially in this case of the consensus mechanism driven by the people.
Yeah, we will come to the governance in a moment, but before I get there, the staking in Cardano is different because it's a non-custodial staking. There has been I know it sounds funny what I'm going to say, but there has been literally news from a couple of days ago. I was very surprised by this, I have to say myself, that in Switzerland, I don't know if you saw that, Florin, in Switzerland there was Swiss government reached a conclusion. By the way, I'm not trying to say that I like it or I dislike it, because sometimes these governments, they reach very funky conclusions, No, excuse me, but in Europe, in Europe, we want to be as eco-friendly as possible, right? Yeah. So Bitcoin is a little bit frowned upon by Sweden and by some governments. I don't know if you know that, right? Because of this energy.
Yeah, we know that.
Right? In America, it's exactly opposite. They completely don't care about that. Well, with an exception maybe of New York State, because I think there have been something around Bitcoin energy usage in the New York State. But a lot of states like Texas and so on, they don't care about it. But what they do care about is like, what is a security, what is not a security, what are exactly the definitions behind a security, and so on and so on. So they are more paranoid on this aspect. But anyway, what I want to say is that in Switzerland, there was a law passed that said that that Ethereum staking is custodial staking, because because there is slashing in Ethereum. In Cardano, we do not have slashing. For the people that don't know, and for you, I don't know if you know these things. So a slashing is basically a situation where a staking pool is somehow misbehaving, either by accident or intentionally. And because of this misbehavior, some of the pledge, some of the value that we are securing the network is going to be removed. Yeah. So that's what we mean by slashing. It's like, so you had 10 Ethereum, right? Then you left your pool for 1 year. Maybe you will, you cannot have 10 Ethereum because you need to have at least 32. But let's say you have 32 Ethereum. Let's stay a little bit more focused on the real world. And then you go on some holidays and you didn't really monitor your pool very well. So it had some sort of aliveness issues. It was not validating. Then maybe after you come back from holiday, you will not have 32 anymore. You will have 31 or whatever the amount is. I don't know exactly how much you're going to lose. The point is that it slashes you, it penalizes you. But now, if you think about that, it's like, okay, but now if you have kind of like a wrapper pool around it, so in Ethereum, you can have custodial traditional staking with the exchanges. Well, now the exchange can lose money as well. So actually, the slashing, if I understand this legislation correctly, caused the fact that it became that there is necessity to register with the authorities, because there is a potential for the people to lose that money that they have. Whereas in Cardano, it's never possible. The only thing that can happen is that the pool is not making any blocks. Then you are not getting any rewards, but you will not get less principal that you had before. Yeah. And there's a reason why Ethereum community did that. We will have no time to go probably in all of these details. I personally do not think that this is necessary to have a slashing, but they have a different opinion about this. They just very short. They have an opinion that slashing is because there could be an attack by the state actor. In other words, a country could try to take over the network or something like that. But exact theory, well, so far it didn't happen. That a nation actor would try to take over the. It's actually, maybe it will happen, but it didn't happen so far, right?
I see. It's the classical 51% attack vector. Isn't it?
Because they are saying that they will print themselves traditional currencies. They will try to get as much access to the network as possible, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Bitcoiners are saying that mining is protecting against that. I have a slightly different opinion about that, but I don't know if we want to get into that rabbit hole.
Well, arguably, it's the same mechanism. You can print money to buy ASICs. So.
Because you need to have funds in order to purchase those miners, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit more convoluted. In case of Bitcoin, we have a physical resource, in case which is a proof of work, and in case of proof of stake, we have a synthetic resource.
Monetary resource.
Yeah.
Monetary. So that actually leads me neatly to one thing about proof of stake I wanted to touch a bit, Mateusz. You said in a tweet, which actually stuck to me a bit earlier this year in January, having analyzed this for a bit now, the only thing when one says proof of work is better than proof of stake is that you can theoretically mine proof of work and obtain coins without buying from someone else. For proof of stake, you need to obtain coins somewhere. Everything else is better in Cardano POS, I think. Can you explain more?
Well, I can, but I already will correct it a little bit because I'm a person that tries to, speak the truth. I'm not kind of like trying to lure people into Cardano and so on and so forth. I think I have missed a couple of small things, and I think some people pointed it out also in the tweet. Like, for instance, we still do not have exactly the same security as in Bitcoin because we don't have Ouroboros Genesis on the mainnet yet. So the level of security is a little bit different, right? So it's not exactly the same, but let's try to stay from the top to bottom. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing, but in cryptocurrencies, for geeks it's great, but for users it's like, oh my god, so complicated everywhere. Because no matter where you go, you have to like deep dive into something. But anyway, yes, if I have a miner, if I purchase this miner, and now comes a problem already. So somebody pointed out in the tweet, but you have to purchase that miner, right? And this is what I didn't see at the beginning. But let's say that the miner fell off the sky. I know it's not the case, but let's hypothetically assume it. Somebody gifted it to you, right? Well, in this case, you would be able, provided it's a good miner, to generate the coins without going into any exchange, purchasing anything. Right? I have a miner, I have electricity, I have a computer, and I'm able to generate at least some Satoshi, some Bitcoins from time to time. In a POS-based system, this is not possible because you have to acquire either delegators to you somehow, or you have to acquire the POS coins, right? Whatever those coins are, you have to purchase them somewhere from somebody at some point. And that is what I said, it's definitely, and I stand by my words. So this is a different thing, which means that if you live, for instance, in a very poor third world country, if somehow somebody gifted a miner to you, or even if you use your GPU, you could still generate maybe some Satoshi if you join some mining pool. I don't know. In which case, in this country, you would be able to bootstrap economy on Satoshis. Not necessarily in the Western world it would have such enormous values, but I can still transact with somebody in some Satoshis, right?
I see, yeah, interesting.
Well, you can say, but if you use layer 1, that will not work. That's why it's this whole debate between Bitcoin Cash and layer 2 solutions on the Bitcoin, right? But for the moment, assuming that, let's say that you're using Lightning Network, again, I don't want to get into too many details right now. Security guarantees of Lightning Network versus Layer 1, this deep conversations. But let's say that you're going to use the Lightning Network, then you could transact yourself with Satoshis. That's pretty cool, if you ask me. I'm not, I'm in Cardano. I like a lot of things in Cardano, but I have to recognize this is a cool feature. We don't have that with Postcoins. However, I have made an assumption, right, that this miner will somehow be given to you. Well, this doesn't happen. We have to purchase this as well, right?
Right.
And
so you're buying, one thing you're buying a computer or some GPU board or ASIC board or whatever, and the other you're
still
buying
need fiat.
But there is still a difference, right? Because I purchased the computer in a different way than I purchased the coins. I have to go to an exchange, and the problem with the POS is still that no matter what happens, you have to purchase it from somebody else. Whereas in case of Bitcoin, I can purchase it from somebody that's completely unrelated. Well, in case of GPUs, at that time, because now we have all these ASIC miners, right? But at that time, you could even purchase it from somebody completely unrelated to the cryptocurrencies, right?
Right.
So you're not buying it from somebody.
Bitcoin is a bit like if someone gives you an olive, you can plant an olive and grow some olive trees and.
Exactly.
It's a little bit like that.
It's a bit like that. Yeah. But I'm hope to be challenged by you, both of you. Maybe there are some other things which I have missed. So there are only two things I mentioned. We still don't have Ouroboros Genesis, so exactly the same thing. Plus this mechanism to purchase the coins is different. But I'm not aware of anything else.
So yeah, the reason. So you said everything else is better in Cardano's proof of stake. Was the end of your tweet. So now I understand a bit more. What I had in mind. So I actually it's a pretty good insight, which I didn't really consider, between proof of stake and proof of work, that you really have to physically buy the coin. That's actually quite a neat observation. But on top of this, my
or delegators
was
wait or delegators in case of our Ouroboros.
Or delegators, right.
You can have only one ADA or even zero ADA. There are some people that have zero ADA and they have a staking pool. Other people will hate that, of course. The ones that I was telling about, this business owner. If you no zero ADA. Excuse me. You know what? We have a minimal stake registration 500. I don't know why, but no, forget about it. Zero ADA will not work. Excuse me.
Will never work. Okay.
Yeah.
My puzzle was about the Cardano proof of stake versus other cryptocurrencies proof of stake, especially on Ethereum. But I think you've touched a bit on that in the conversation we just had with the slashing. That's definitely something that makes the Cardano proof of stake a bit apart from Ethereum's. They both suffer under, just call it suffer by the same problem of you having to purchase beforehand.
Yes, they both suffer from this fact. Yeah. So slashing, as I already mentioned, was different. We have a liquid staking in Cardano by default. We don't have withdrawal periods, so meaning that I want to withdraw now. So in Ethereum, I think you have to wait 2 weeks or something like that. In our case, you can immediately withdraw. So you have all the time. Actually, if you think about from the banking point of view, it would be your checking account is the same like your savings account. That is what we have in Cardano. In Ethereum, you still have a checking account and you have your savings account, right?
I see.
As best analogy I can give for that, because from the savings account, some banks will even stop you from withdrawing if some period is not met. Or
if you have a term deposit, for instance.
Yeah, or you have a penalty or whatever if you want to withdraw.
Talking of periods, I probably related to voting on Cardano, and this is relevant to you, Mateusz, especially because you have this voting system, right? But I was wanting to vote on the recent Catalyst thing, and I couldn't because I didn't register for voting, and even though I registered, voting closed 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I tried to register a month before or something,
Yeah.
like a month before the vote. Why is that?
Well, I'm not definitely Catalyst expert. This is a certain team at an IOG dealing with that, but I do know like basic things in the Catalyst. So there are registration periods and the voting periods. Yeah. So Catalyst is a system where, contrary to the voting application which I wrote, we don't have a pro-registration actually.
Okay.
Which is both good and bad from the cryptocurrency, from the crypto point of view, but we will not have time for this for sure. But in Catalyst, there is a pre-registration which is necessary within a particular window for each fund that is displayed.
Why? Do you know why?
I don't know why, but I can give you an example, but it's really deep. But for geeks, it's pretty cool. But for some of our listeners, I don't know if they want to listen to this.
Assume that.
But there is, but at least I can give you one example where it could matter. I don't know if they are using exactly the same cryptographic primitives, but you know, there's something called Merkle trees in computer science theory, right? You probably heard about it. But there's also something called sparse Merkle trees, right?
Okay.
A difference between sparse Merkle tree and the Merkle tree is that a sparse Merkle tree is already created from the beginning. The only thing that changes is the fact that certain
like the data in it or something.
Sorry?
Like the data in it, you kind of flesh out bits of the data.
Yeah, exactly. So some nodes are either leaves are not nodes. Leaves are filled or not filled with data.
Oh.
So some of the things that we've been going into with the theory of voting, you really wish you had a sparse Merkle tree. Again, it's a lot of details to discuss. Well, because rather than keep constructing the Merkle tree as the voting is happening.
Okay.
Because that means the Merkle tree is constantly rebalancing itself. You keep recreating.
Okay. Okay.
You might not want that, and you might want actually to have a sparse Merkle tree. If you have a sparse Merkle tree, that means you must have a registration procedure, because at the beginning there is registration closes, and the sparse Merkle tree is generated. It's just empty, but it's already.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So this.
Well, I wonder why. That's interesting, but I wonder why it's so long before the actual vote, because he has to.
That I can give you a person to talk to. I think these are the details that can be set up and changed. So I cannot really comment on that. This is decided by the Catalyst team, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Thanks.
Yeah. So what else? Yeah, in Cardano, the smart contracts comparing, for instance, to Ethereum are quite different, because we have only local state. We don't have a global state, which means that the security of the contracts will be different. Until now, well, we had some small hacks in Ethereum, but in Cardano, but nothing serious. And in Ethereum, they happen much more frequently, basically. Personally, if I am like a normal user, I would be scared away from Ethereum a little bit. I'm also not trying to colorize that in Cardano we sorted everything out when it comes to smart contracts. No, we didn't. There are still some more formal verifications and so on and so forth. It's definitely not a closed topic, but I think by definition or by some original primitives, we are more secure, basically. We also have on-chain only Lambda calculus comparing to Ethereum, right? So we don't have a Ethereum virtual machine. We have Plutus virtual machine, which is nothing else than a Lambda calculus. That means that, everything is functions. Everything is functions on Plutus virtual.
This is why I came to Cardano in the first place, because I thought that was cool. Yeah.
So we have now, of course, multiple languages in Cardano that are able to compile into this Lambda calculus.
Yeah, Aiken, for instance, right?
For instance, Aiken, we have Helios, and so on and so forth. But underneath the virtual machine is still the Lambda calculus.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we have, for instance, passive smart contracts. We don't have active smart contracts like in case of Ethereum. So that means actually we sometimes we say that in Cardano we have validators. We have passive validators because the only thing that you are doing is you are asserting on chain the state true or false. Yeah. So a smart contract on Cardano returns either true or false. That's it.
But
So,
can you explain more what you mean about this passive versus active? Does that mean that in Ethereum, a smart contract could sit there and then on the 4th of November, my birthday, suddenly it sends some money to me, sends some Ethereum
yeah,
to me?
yes, I mean, this is, I'm not an expert in Ethereum, I have to confess, but this is my understanding that, yes, the smart contract can actually can do something, maybe not necessarily send money because that has to be approved by the user or something, I don't know, but it's not passive basically, right? It's that's what I call active, but exactly the details of Ethereum smart contract, I'm not the best expert to ask this. What I do know is that in Cardano you need to have a bit of off-chain component that is actually going to invoke that contract. Because the contract will not do anything on its own.
I see. Yeah, that's a difference.
It's going to validate.
It will not activate on its own, basically.
It will not activate on its own. So this document switch scenario that we were talking about, right? Well, if the time passes, because I didn't press on the button, what will happen is that, well, the contract will still not do anything, but at least the next time you invoke it, then of course the validation will return a different value, right? Because now that there's a different slot, basically. There's different time, basically. So, but it will not do anything on its own. Yeah, that's also different. But now the topic on governance. So I think this is
before you go there, Mateusz, I have something that I wanted to talk for a while, and I've been looking into the space. Let's keep the governance in our back pocket.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
I have it as a question actually for you, which is quite an important one. Please. But there is something that interests me a bit more at this point, which is the state of stablecoins in Cardano. Has USDC arrived?
Yeah, thank you. This is an interesting topic. Yeah. So we do. So the only so first of all, I mean, stablecoins, just for the viewers that don't know, for the listeners, right? It's bringing the traditional assets, in this case, fiat currencies, whatever, euro, British pounds, or whatever you want. So they are somehow available on the blockchain. And this can be done in two ways, either in an algorithmic way or in asset-backed way. And each of those categories of algorithmic and asset-backed, they will have subcategories as well. But first on the high level. And asset-backed stablecoins, algorithmic stablecoins, I wanted to start with those, will keep the value, the peg, what we call, to the traditional asset of chain, obviously, because it's a physical asset, right? It's a cash. They will do that in an algorithmic way, whatever that algorithm is. There has been a lot of algorithms in the past. A lot of them didn't work, actually. And the only one that so far have been working, and by working, I also have to put it in double quotes, I will come to that in a moment, are collateralized algorithmic stablecoins. And on Cardano, we have a collateralized stablecoin. It's called JET. You might have heard about this already. Where in order for the cryptocurrency to pegging to the US dollars, right, to lose the value, the ADA would have to drop a lot, basically. And such thing never happened so far. Would have to be 4 or 5 times drop from the price of the current ADA. So, because the JET is collateralized with at the moment is configured to be 4x, basically. So you have to have 4x amount of capital in order to for it to depeg, basically. But that also brings us to a disadvantage of that. It means that there might be periods where you will not be able to mint. You will not be able to get from the contract, because at the end of the day it's a smart contract. You will not be able to get USD value because the contract is blocked. That you have to mint now the shell, which is another token, which is Jet on its own could be its own podcast, right? But it's not 100% fluid. That means there might be periods that you cannot mint Jet or Shell, or you cannot mint Jet, which is equivalent of USD then. Yes, so far it has never looked the bag. Maybe only on some exchanges, but there is always a place where you can redeem it 1-to-1 to $1. So that has never lost its peg from that point of view. But not always you will be able to perform this. And for those reasons, there is an idea to bring, for instance, an asset-backed stablecoin, where it's nothing else than a traditional banking system, from my point of view, where basically there is a custodian that is saying, yes, when you purchase this coin from me, then I'm going to also purchase it from the bank. And I'm going to hold it in a bank or in multiple banks, So some asset-backed stablecoin providers, they are clever people, and they are not storing at one bank, but they are actually storing at multiple banks. So if one bank goes down, then they have some protection and so on and so on. But nevertheless, you still don't know if they really actually have those coins, right? So that's how the traditional USDC.
That's what oracles are for, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what oracles are for. I'll come to that. To that because there is a stablecoin coming to Cardano in March. Unfortunately, it had a delay. Where actually, they want to go with the oracle approach, but this kind of like traditional asset-backed stablecoin, they will have no protections like that. So USDC typically is unprotected. USDT is unprotected. We actually do not know if those institutions indeed hold this amount of.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I know, it's crazy. We are still in the rodeo in cryptocurrencies. Like not rodeo, sorry. The wild west, I would say.
But I thought that was the whole point about a stable coin, that they have the bid.
Well, it is, if you ask me, but if you try to implement things in a very fast way, then of course you're gonna rush without such protections. Yeah, because you want adoption, you want people coming in, number go up and so on. So the traditional USDC does not have that. However, what they do have, they have an enormous amount of, exactly. They have this adoption. They have a lot of institutions, traditional investors. They don't, believe it or not, they don't care about this, because the traditional banking system also works in this way, that we don't know if it's right. So in that sense, for them, it's the same. But they still will bring a lot of these coins into these networks, because these coins have clawbacks, freezes, and so on and so forth. So actually, they have a lot of these kind of protections that the traditional banking system will offer. So recently, there's been a video by Charles. I encourage you to watch that video. That we have at the moment situation in cryptocurrencies where the traditional banking systems are eating the crypto alive. Because they are spawning so much liquidity. Before I get to that liquidity, so one of the criticisms that we get in Cardano a lot is that, it's a great thing, I love your dApps, everything is fine, but the total value locked, or the liquidity that we have, is still not comparable to for instance, Ethereum, right? Or even Solana. We are, I think, half of the Solana or something like that right now. I can't remember exactly the numbers, and even further away from Ethereum when it comes to the liquidity, or volume on chain, and sure, it's a fact. You can't argue with that because there are metrics for this. But the question is, why is this the case? And a lot of people believe that one of very big reasons behind that is because we do not have USDC. we do not have this most or USDT as a matter of fact. Well, actually, we do have them. I will come to that, how we do have them, but we do not have them implemented natively. Circle would issue them directly. Circle is a company behind the USDC, would issue them directly on Cardano. There are conversations with Circle from Foundation, from IOG, and so on and so forth. It's changing all the time. In fact, the conversations were already 2-3 years ago, so it's nothing new, but they are coming back and some negotiations are happening and so on and so forth. So I don't know exactly, maybe it's going to come or not going to come. I don't know what's the latest. But the point being here is that these are the traditional assets which are being bought into the blockchains. And the criticism was like, but your volume is very low. And if you think about this number go up mentality only because, at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves. There is no person on the planet that will completely not care about financial aspects, right? But it's just about where are you positioning yourself on that kind of thing. On this side or on this side or somewhere in the middle, right? Is this only about the money, right, for you? Or is there anything in between, basically? That doesn't matter. If I go around and hypothetically, if that would be legal, like doing activities which are completely immoral, if you ask at least 80% of the people, but nevertheless, I keep doing them because they are legal and I'm earning a lot of money with that. That means you are on this right hand side, right? Versus activities that are quite, you get my point, I hope.
Yeah.
Say, right? So USDC from that point of view is very discussable because this is exactly what we're trying to change in that system. We're not trying to exactly bring it. But if you care only about the money, of course this is not great because we don't have the same volume, we don't have the same total value locked as some of these other coins have, which have invited USDC, paid quite a lot for those integrations quite often. Doesn't really matter at this stage. But what matters more is they have these coins on the platform. The skeptics, of course, will say, and to be honest, rightfully so, that's why it's not an easy topic, but why don't you give a choice to people? If I want to have a USDC, and we are in the libertarian spirit, then in libertarian spirit, you should allow me to have that, right? Provided that I know what this means, that I don't have a security behind it from the banking system. Sorry. I have it from the banking system, but the banking system might collapse in that sense, I wanted to say, right? So in that sense, it is very far away from the Bitcoin original ideas. The chancellor on the brink of the bailout, and you get my point, what has been coded in the Genesis book of Cardano, right? Nevertheless, if I'm a conscious person, it's like with drinking. Drinking is for adults. You can drink yourself to death, or you can be a moderate drinker and drink a little bit of alcohol only, even though we know that alcohol is not good for you, and so on and so forth. So in that spirit, that's why it's a difficult conversation, because we are inviting this, but at the same time, it can take over completely the ecosystem as it's happening in some other chains. And what Charles...
You think it's taking over?
Well, this is the premise which Charles said. I think there is... Well, it's not taking over yet, because these are the initial stages. And now I wanted to get into the analogy that I was holding off for that moment that Florin will ask me this question. So we had very recently a conversation with an institution that is that you can register your tokens into. So Ethereum projects can register a token, and Cardano projects can register a token, and so on and so forth. It's a registry of tokens. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. It's an ISO-based institution, so it's a very traditional institution. Yeah, ISO is a traditional formalization institution.
Yeah.
And we were discussing with them. It's like, okay, this is what we need for Cardano. Here are some things we are missing, and so on and so forth. But suddenly the conversation went into some area which I didn't expect. But I learned a lot from that conversation. And this person said, but this is the old standard, now the new standard is coming. And said, okay, but what will be the new standard from the ISO for the registration of the tokens? Now it will be possible optionally to put a KYC into the project. So that means the founders of the project will be able to KYC into that project. Right now we don't have that.
But when you say to register a token, you mean to register, like, because Cardano has these
Cardano is a
native sub tokens, right?
Sub tokens, thank you. More like sub tokens. Of course, Cardano and those like Ethereum, those network assets are also in that registry. But some of the networks, as you very well know, allow to have tokens on that network.
Yeah. So this ISO thing. This ISO thing is about giving names or codes to those tokens.
Yeah, giving names, code, description of the token.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then there will be this KYC component to it. But before we get to KYC, and I will tell you why this is now I'm starting to understand. I will tell you another thing. And it's like we only have 2 for Cardano at the moment of these projects that have registered. I was like wondering. I was asking the question to this person, but is this the same for Ethereum that we only have so few? And he said, no, there are more, but actually we see a lot of opposition from the project. I said, what? And why there is opposition to register into the registry? And he provided this explanation. It was him. He said, like, well, a lot of these projects, they are afraid because these are the traditional institutions that, they will start asking some inconvenient questions, or, they don't want to have anything to do with that legacy. And I was like thinking about what inconvenient questions and so on and so forth. Why would have anybody a problem? It's just the contract address in case of Ethereum, because on Ethereum, this is one big difference between Cardano and Ethereum, that we actually have native assets, right? On Ethereum, we don't have native assets. That means every token is actually a view into a bank account. It's a view into the smart contract, the ERC20. So by definition, you do not have access to it, actually, depending how do you program the access rights. In Cardano, it's exactly opposite. You are the owner and only the owner by definition. If you want the smart contract enabled tokens, we have now a new CIP, Cardano Improvement Proposal, CIP 113, where we also will allow a smart contract based tokens, what Ethereum had since beginning, basically. So
that's a new thing. That's a new thing.
That's a new thing for us. For them, it's a very old thing, effectively.
That could be interesting to me, actually.
Yeah, SIP 113. It actually has been paid as a way to potentially enable USDC on Cardano because they need ability to freeze the tokens. If you have native assets, nobody's gonna freeze me those assets. These are my assets. Nobody can touch them.
So actually, I wanted that for this T-Euro thing that we actually have a funding. So is it Fund 11 that finishes? That's
Fund 11
today. That's announced today, right? I don't know
exactly. Sorry.
I think it is announced today. So, but that's interesting that now you can have contracts on the. Yeah.
And there is a demonstration contract. I can send you a link of a person which I value a lot in the Cardano ecosystem, a developer which actually provided this functionality and also has written SIP 113.
SIP 113. Okay.
SIP 113, and there is a demo contract that you press a freeze button, and then the token that you have in your wallets.
That's the functionality I need, I think. But it brings us
not
back
the freezing.
Yeah, because if you want to stop moving tokens because someone's not KYC'd or their KYC is dropped off, right?
And this is exactly this traditional crypto. That's what I wanted to say. That this is all they are talking about all the time. KYC, AML, and this kind of
traditional TradFi. You mean not
traditional TradFi, right?
Traditional TradFi, if you will. And then when this person in the conversation said, coming back to the conversation, because I said that these people do not want to register the tokens. And then he tells me further down the conversation, in the next version, we'll have KYC. A lot of these crypto people do not want to go
I know,
KYC because they do not want to dox themselves.
Right.
Whether it is a good thing or bad thing, I don't want to at the moment have the conversation. It's a moral conversation.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that I do understand that there's some reasoning now behind it. And what we were thinking of doing is to do some sort of project for a bulk import. So we would look into the tap tools or some Cardano native assets by the volume. We would sort them and then we would import them. But I'm not sure we will go with this right now, because knowing this now, this project might not be happy that they're gonna be auto imported by
interesting.
by us.
So this is the ISO. Is this the currency code or so? Because at the moment, Bitcoin is known as XBT, right? So every currency code. So EUR is euro, USD is USD, but
more complicated than that. Yeah. So a cryptocurrency code in their registry is just a name, a short name. This is what
but for instance, Bitcoin
they have multiple
XBT.
aliases. So there is XBT for Bitcoin and BTC.
Yeah.
But actually, they have their own registry code. So right now, I'm no longer working on the ballot application. I'm working on another application. And in that application, we actually need a standardized representation of traditional currencies. For there is an ISO 27, I forgot now. But for the traditional fiat currencies, of course, there is an ISO since ages. And there is also now an ISO for these cryptocurrencies, which this registry that I'm talking about is responsible for. And I had a case that there was I think it was BTC ABC or something versus BTC. Okay, there was a situation where there was the same code for a coin, native asset, but basically it was completely different.
Yeah. That's possible.
So that's why they have their own registry
on different networks, right? So you could have a native coin on Cardano that you could
also. So
blah blah blah, and that someone else.
Yeah.
Network is blah blah blah.
So now, when we are designating a cryptocurrency in the system I'm working on right now in the new project, we actually are very specific now. We are saying this ISO, this particular name like BTC, and this code from the registry, which is a unique identifier from the registry. So a Bitcoin cannot suddenly become a Bitcoin ABC in that sense, because a Bitcoin ABC will have a different code there. You get my point?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool to work with these guys. And I realized that now I understand why some people might be a little bit skeptical towards this TradFi, because next version they want to put the KYC, and maybe some projects do not want that. Not because they think something dodgy. You see, this is the thing that we're always thinking that if you're not doing KYC, that means you're doing something illegal. Not necessarily.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
Especially
not.
in the fiat world, everything is not KYC'd. When you work with banknotes, who will identify you when you're exchanging money on the street?
In the traditional physical currency, right?
Yeah, in the physical world, I think there is a fundamental need to mirror that in the crypto world, and it's been a feature of these blockchains ever since the beginning, that you don't need KYC to be able to exchange value between
at the beginning, I used to think that we only need it for countries like Belarus, when there is no proper democracy, in some horrible countries and so on and so forth, whatever those are, but where there are regimes. This is what I was thinking. But actually, this example with COVID and what happened in Canada actually made me change my mind that even in the Western democracies, we can have something absolutely horrible, that somebody is blocking my bank account. You probably know about Trackster's process, right?
I do know.
Somebody's blocking my bank account, so I no longer have access to be able to afford the food, in order to force me not to go to demonstrate. Like,
based on your beliefs.
What was that, Florian? What was that story?
The Trackster protests,
So some people protested in Canada, and the government froze their assets to force them to give up their protests. And this is actually not something that is a feature of a democracy, but the very instrument that enabled that to happen is the fact that you can freeze funds, you can freeze people's accounts. And this is something that back to the stable coins has been a requirement for stable coins to be able to freeze the assets on the chain. And it is a given in any kind of electronic currency, cryptocurrencies included, or CBDCs for that matter.
Yeah,
there is a fundamental feature that needs to be implemented, and that's actually government requirement that funds have to be. You have to be able to freeze accounts for people in case the government will require that. Without that feature, you cannot issue a stable currency.
But you can implement it in a different way. So there is a project on Cardano now, USDM, very soon coming out. I already mentioned.
Mayhem,
right? I'm going to use native assets. And people said, but how is this possible? That cannot work because that's not compliant. Well, they implemented it somehow in a compliant way such that, yes, the native asset on the chain itself is unable to be frozen because it's a native asset. But on the gateways, they have ability to freeze when going back to fiat. And according to their lawyers, look, I'm not in this project very deep, but according to their lawyers, this is fine. This is fine, and this is accepted. Such a procedure. So we do not have a native freezing, but you have freezing only on the bridges.
On the
on-ramp, off-ramp.
Yeah.
On-ramp, off-ramp. But yeah, so at the moment in Cardano, we mostly have USDC from the one chain, which is a very popular bridge that a lot of people in cryptocurrencies probably already heard about, that you can bridge assets between various chains. Allegedly secure, so I know there is a
very hackable, theoretically.
Yeah, I know there is a very strong team behind one chain, but of course, historically speaking, at various bridges, yeah, a lot of them have been hacked. That's the fact. A lot of people are afraid of the bridges, actually. But looking at the one chain so far, until today, there has not been any vulnerability known or exploited or anything like that to the one chain. At least this is what I do know. You do your own research. So we do have liquidity on USDC coming from the other blockchain, but only through the bridge. People are fighting in Cardano, some people, not everybody, because there are also haters of USDC, but they are fighting to actually have a proper native USDC deployed by the circle, basically. And now there is an organization within Intersect. Intersect is one of the organizations within Cardano. We have Emurgo, we have Cardano Foundation, IOG, and now Intersect as well, that has actually a stablecoin group. So it has a formal group that you can join. And
I'd be interested to know about that. What's it called?
Go for it. I can contact you with a person. His name is Sheldon, and yeah, there is a committee, if you will, a stablecoin committee.
Oh yeah, I would be interested to
and one of the hot topics in the stablecoin committee right now is actually USDC and some sort of interaction with Circle, yeah, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I hope that. Because somebody asked a question, is crypto eating, is legacy eating crypto or not? So, and I think, Simon, you were making the point that it's not. I don't think today it is the case yet. But if you see now, okay, the next version of ISO will have it as an optional KYC, and then one day they will flip.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's lots happening, right? Like there's digital euro on the way, right? That's a couple of years away. There's various countries doing their own CBDC and so on. But folks, we are coming up to the top of the hour, right? Maybe we should, I don't know, and what you think we should pause but it would be good to have you back, Mateusz.
Sure.
Another
episode.
Yeah,
another for sure. There's so much more we wanted to ask you, but we'll save that.
Things to talk about, I would say.
Very good.
Really cool. Thank you so much, Mateusz.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Your stake pool is called
Cardano Fans.
That's
Cardano Fans, CRFA. I'm doing it with a co-founder from Brazil, actually. We have a few products that we are evolving. But yeah, the CRFA is called.
Cool. Anything else?
CRFA. So maybe we should get you to tell us how people can find you and how people can find the CRFA Fans handle.
Yeah, on Twitter you can write me, or on Telegram. Yeah.
We'll make sure to add your
Yeah, we
link
can put
there.
that in the show notes also, right? Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thank you very much, and talk to you another time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank
Mateusz.
you.
Great
See you.
stuff.
Bye bye.
We'll get you
Ciao.
back.
Bye.
Bye bye.